Now I'm in the right place. Okay. Hi, everybody. Welcome. This is our free, fun, online, virtual come hang with me and Tara because shit's about to get real in 2023 class. And we're glad that you're here. So welcome in. And I want to share with you a couple of things before we kick off this hour, which, by the way, is going to go by so fast. And we will do our best to make time for your questions and for the best answers we have, right? Because that's the thing with astrology, right? Like, we're going to be living through this alongside you. So we'll see how it goes. But we're here for it. You're here for it. And we're delighted that you're here. Make sure that you share this into your feed. And let your friends know that we're live if they want to come and see this. We try to do this in the evening. It's 5 p.m. Pacific time, 8 p.m. Eastern time, hella late Europe time. I think it's 1 a.m. in the UK. So anyway, thank you for those of you who are here from all the different time zones and locations. So our intention tonight is to talk to you. A lot of astrologers do this thing, and I'm sure, Tara, you've had your fill of this. It's like they call it thirst traps, right? Like they'll say like the biggest shift on the planet is coming in March, but they won't say anything else, and the video is not really about that. So we kind of want to pop the bubble tonight and just say, yes, there is a huge shift coming, right?
Yeah.
It's big. I don't know that it's going to be the biggest shift of your entire life, but it is big, and we do want to prepare you for it. And we also want to talk about the fact that for the first time ever, Tara and I have been working together now for
almost 6 years.
I thought 7, but yeah. I mean, it's just a long fucking time. Yeah. And so this is our first time, though, teaching a class together every month, and we're really excited about it. And so that class is called Living Magic. Da, da, da. And so here's why you need to join. And it's open for registration now. And you can take just Living Astrology, which is just the one class that Tara and I are teaching together. You can take just that class for $40 a month. And Karen and Alexis are here. They'll put the links up for you to register. Or you can sign up for the whole month of classes, which includes not only Tara and my class on astrology, but it also includes sound healing, and it includes crystal magic and healing and wisdom, and it also includes a kind of fun new session called Practicing Magic, where I take you into my home and my garden and my kitchen to do all these things. But if you like what you see tonight, you're going to get this once a month for 2 hours live. And it's going to be really interesting because it's not just astrology. It's the astronomical shifts and events of every month, including like, hey, what's retrograde right now? Hey, there's an eclipse this month. What do I need to... And how's that going to affect me? A lot of times you want to know how these eclipses and these retrograde periods are going to affect you personally. And that's where we're going to go on a deep dive the first Wednesday of every month, her and I. So we just want to tell you, if you want more of what you're going to see tonight, sagefest.com/livingmagic is where you go. And if you just want the Astro piece, which is totally cool, we broke it out separately because some of you may just want the Astro piece. Tara and I... She's a professional astrologer. She's our lead astrologer, head astrologer here at Sage Goddess. She's also the head of our writing team. This is her bailiwick. I've studied astrology for 30 years. It's not my focus, right? Like, I'm more holistic and she's more focused. This is really truly where she's done the deep dive. And so I consider her like the astrology doctor in the house, right? So like, she's got the red phone. She's the emergency phone call that we make. No, but it's really true because she's got this expertise and she is world renowned. When she goes to conferences, everybody knows who she is. The major influencers in the field know who she is and work with her. And so I just want to say I'm really proud, first of all, to be alongside her. I'm grateful because I still learn from you all the time. And I love the fact that we're taking a deeper dive on astrology this year. We're actually certifying you as a living astrology practitioner this year through the Living Magic program. So if you like this, you can keep learning and experiencing. And we'll talk more about that at the end of our time. But yes, this is Dr. Tara in the house. Whatever, I like it.
Yeah, well, and I'm always learning from you. And, well, we'll be sharing more of this later, but we have interesting connections in our birth charts that help us see things from different points of view and complement each other. But one of the things I really love about astrology, maybe the main reason why I work with it, is that it really is a practical way to make your life better. So
That's true.
even though we talk fancy about it and we get into all kinds of techniques, at the end of the day, for me, if I can't live it, if it doesn't bring something to me what I'm actually doing, it's not really very useful.
Yeah.
So we're really this year working together to make it very integrative. And so as we work with the top events each month, we'll break them down, but we'll also, Athena, like you and I will talk about, okay, well, what's the really key theme of all that together? Is there like one word we can all focus on? Because it helps us not just look at the individual pieces, but actually how it's all working together.
Yeah.
Which to your point is that's why it's so hard to say this is the one monumental shift. I mean, Pluto entering Aquarius is a huge
It's a big shift.
But you in your own life, based on your own chart and where things are activating, some people will feel it greater than others. So,
That's true.
So we just always want to leave room. But this one, I mean, Pluto ushers us into new generations.
That's really true.
Yeah. So we're like, in many ways, all of us are getting ready to graduate. Not that we're all going to fully graduate, right?
Yeah.
But that's the point. Like, I think
true.
we're at this point where we can't continue moving on.
Yeah.
And so the flip is going to happen.
And Pluto, but Pluto too for me. So and Tara knows this, and this is one of the ways that we kind of like complement each other, and I think really enjoy each other. Is I always bring it back to mythology, right? Like Pluto is the underworld, right? Like Pluto is the subterranean. It's underneath everything that we are consciously living and doing. And so even if everything looks okay on the surface, Pluto is under the surface saying some shit's got to change. And what for me Pluto represents is it's undeniable and it is irreconcilable. So when Pluto says things are shifting, things are shifting. I mean, it's not like you can negotiate. It's non-negotiable. And so this can be showing up, by the way, for you. And I would love if you would just drop a comment or share a perspective, especially if you're on YouTube, about how this might be showing up in your life. Because it could be like the ending of a relationship, even a long-term relationship. It could be the changing of a career path, even a long-term career path. And those things which seem really surprising. And by the way, AR, you don't have to know your birth time for tonight.
No.
This is affecting everybody, darling. Right? So, and the U.S. is already in its Pluto return, Lorian, so that's already in progress.
Yep.
And different countries go through their Pluto returns at different times. But I will just tell you, what we're talking about tonight isn't even about the U.S. or about the U.K. It's really about you. This isn't a transpersonal. This is a personal shift. And so are there things happening that are affecting us on a national level or a global level? Yes. But wouldn't you say this is also personal too?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. I mean, Pluto is collective power source. By collective, I don't even just mean humans. It is collective power source. And Pluto is what keeps that power source going.
Yeah.
And to keep a power source going, sometimes things have to be eliminated or recycled to keep the power moving.
Yeah.
And so whenever we work with Pluto, there's a huge element of this, what needs to be sloughed off, right? What is dead weight? What is rotting? It's another good word. It's a gross word, right? But what is rotting or what is...
Underworld,
or what is,
go there, yeah.
What is corrupt? What is a toxin, right? These are all things. And if you at all working with like medical astrology, which is not my forte, but Pluto rules viruses and bacteria and toxins, right? So all those things, it's about the transformations we have to go through to shift. But just like when the body's breaking down toxins, part of the detox process, first it amplifies them because it has to recognize what they are to get rid of them. So when we're working with Pluto, whether if we're talking about personally in your birth chart or just collectively, stuff oftentimes gets super amplified. It's so we can recognize this part really has to go, because otherwise chances are we just learn to deal with it. We take another pill, we do another whatever. We're like, that'll be cool.
Yeah.
And especially with this shift, Pluto has been in Capricorn since 2008.
Yeah.
And
think about that. 2008. I mean, my daughter, I was about to be pregnant with my daughter, who's now like a shitty teenager, right? Like, it's a long time, right? When you think about 2008, where were you in 2008? What was happening in your life? It's interesting to think about that dynamic.
Yeah, and one of the kind of simple ways to think about Capricorn versus Aquarius, I was doing some reading, kind of sleuthing around what other people are talking about, but which I do all the time, by the way. That's how we learn, right? You need input for output.
Yep.
But I read somewhere that someone has said, which completely makes sense with the archetypes, right? Capricorn is the president and Aquarius is the Congress. So we are shifting from a period of time where the hierarchy was strong,
and super top down, right? Like I'm going to tell you what to do, and you're going to do it too. To truly bottom up, we decide together. Some people are calling this, so the last time Pluto was in Aquarius is when the Constitution was ratified, right? And what does it start with? Literally, we the people. But so some people are calling this transit power to the people. But something that's good to remember is that majority rules means half the time you don't get what you want. I'm only saying this just so you know that there are a lot of people that criticize capitalism. Yeah.
And I'm not trying, we're not going to be political, we're going any direction here.
We don't go political, but yes.
I'm just suggesting that you really think about where you land on some of these things, because true Aquarian doesn't worry so much about what the individual person needs. It's what's good for all of us. So if it's a company, well, what's best for the majority?
Best for everybody, yeah.
And again, when people vote, probably half the time you won't be on that side. So, but we also know that we can't keep on going the way we've been going, right? We were just talking earlier, at the end of Capricorn, truly you hit a ceiling.
Yeah.
It's as high as you can go, and there is no further in that direction. So to have any growth, something has to come down.
Yeah, so 1778 to 1798 was the last time Pluto was in Aquarius. And that's where we're heading now. And so part of what we want to share with you, and I saw somebody say, if only it was that simple.
We're not saying it's simple.
We're not saying it's that simple, but at the same time, we are saying it's that simple, right? Like there are different ways. So I'm a leadership expert. I have a PhD in leadership, right? And there are two types of leadership, direct and indirect influence, okay? So if I am your boss, I can say, you do that. And then if you don't do that, there could be consequences because I have direct influence. If I'm not your boss, though, but you really respect me, you know what I mean? You like me and you think that I have good ideas. I have no control over you. I don't pay you or anything. But I say, hey, have you thought about this? And you're like, wow, that really makes sense. I'm going to integrate that into my practice. That's also leadership. And in a lot of ways, that's more powerful leadership, is indirect influence. When you don't have control over someone, but they respect you so much that they're going to listen to what you're saying because it just makes sense, and they're going to think about it and reflect on it and integrate it. This is the period not of direct influence, right? That's where we're leaving. But we're moving into a period, don't you think, of indirect influence where I can't make you do something, but maybe because it's interesting or you haven't thought about it that way before, you might integrate or reflect on what I'm saying and take it to heart, and it might change the way you think about what you're doing. As a leader myself, and even in my academic career, I always had more respect for indirect influence because anybody can be a direct leader, right? You can go get a job where you tell people what to do and they do it because they're afraid or they have to, but amazing what happens when you have indirect influence. And so Aquarian influence is indirect. It isn't you have to do this. It's almost like, and there's also a meme in social, and it was interesting. It reminds me of this too, this whole paradigm shift. It said, don't be a look at me person, be a come with me person, right? Like, don't do what I'm doing because what I'm doing looks good or it seems right or I'm telling you to do it. Do what I'm doing because maybe there's some truth to it and it's resonating with you in your spirit, right? And you're like, I want more of that. It's like in your gut, it's in your solar plexus. It's not in your third eye or your... So I don't know. I mean, that for me is part of the paradigm shift too. You know, it's like, I think we can start to see leadership as coming from more of a plateau and more of a collective influence rather than like, you have to do this because I told you to do it.
I haven't thought about the direct versus indirect, but it's really interesting. And I'm thinking that, and by the way, Capricorn, it may sound like we're talking about Capricorn in a way that is kind of shadowy, but that's just because the shift brings that up. I mean, Capricorn has as many beautiful attributes and gifts as anything else. It does. Yeah. But one of the downsides of it is management over leadership, and it is ordering over inspiring, right? And so that, to me, as you're talking, that's what I'm thinking about, because the Aquarian way is more being inventive and innovative, right? And it's
check
really
this out. This is fun. We can do it this
how
way.
Cool is this? Versus the, I told you 10 times, Athena, I need you to check this box.
Right.
Which is sometimes the feeling of that authoritative Capricorn energy.
And pressuring,
The last time Pluto was in Aquarius, you gave the dates, but that was during the Industrial and the French Revolutions.
Yeah.
That's huge, because the Industrial Revolution is where we shifted from people to machines making goods.
Remember that?
So,
it's
going to be.
You might have been at a past life, though, where you were deeply involved in all of that.
But here's the thing to think about that's super exciting about this change. So where Capricorn likes to link into the past, it likes to, we've proven this works, it's strong, it's stable, it's steady, it's productive. Mm-hmm. Aquarius is willing to make a leap and do something different.
Yeah.
And so now we're pulling in the change. So Pluto already is about change, right? Yeah. It's about evolution itself.
Yeah.
And now Aquarius is a sign of change. So when you put those together, the chances of making huge strides in technology and science, in
medicine for sure,
AI,
right? AI is a whole other.
And Aquarius is the sign associated with astrology, so it gives me extra pleasure to say that we are now entering the transformative time where we may, and that's just one example, but looking at different ways, different intelligences, looking at different ways of understanding things. So I think that's super exciting. Another thing I made a note of is that Aquarius in the body, it rules or is associated with the circulatory system. So it's really about, which is about distributing and moving things around. Yeah. Right? Yeah. So when you think about that in this context.
And blood and water and liquid, right?
So things are moving around, and you think if Pluto is about power, and if Aquarius is about getting information and energy shared and distributed, this is about distribution of power.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah. So it really, this paradigm shift that we're talking about is phenomenal in the sense of freedom to do something different. But I'm going to say another thing here, because Aquarius isn't always so free-minded.
No, they can be really shitty and judgmental. I was raised by two of them.
My parents have strong.
Guys, so I love you guys, but you're dead, and I can talk about you now like you were shitty sometimes.
Yes. That could be a whole separate talk about our personal experiences.
No, but seriously, with Aquarius, it can be the most oh, you do you and you be you, and I love when you're different, and then all of a sudden it's but not that different.
Yeah. And this is the way, right?
And then if you do it any other way than this, I'm going to judge you.
Yeah. And think about it. I mean, it's a fixed sign.
Yeah.
So fixed signs are all about, bringing value, meaning, and purpose, but they want to kind of, hold on to
They want to have their perspective.
Something.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I always just find it interesting to think about that. Free-mindedness is sometimes so attached to the freedom that then actually is the loss of freedom, which sounds weird, but it really is. There's a truth in there. Yeah. So you want to be careful, for example, that we don't become so rigid and I just got to do it differently, that you actually do things that are not smart, right? Or you create chaos, because that is not true freedom.
Yeah.
And this is where we want to talk about the healthy transition from Capricorn to Aquarius, moving from Pluto, is that without some foundation, without some container, without those pieces, that it is just chaos.
Yeah.
So it's not about throwing all the past out, which sometimes is how we feel with this, right? Oh my gosh, it's not working, it's a wreck, everything's a nightmare, right?
Let's just start over.
Yeah, all down the toilet or whatever. I mean, there may be some things that we need to do that with, but there are many things where it's not, there's a lot we can still pull from the past. And I just say, and so by the way, yes, we'll feel this collectively, but you personally, I mean, this is like you in your own life.
Yeah.
What rules have you been following for the last approximate 15 years that don't work anymore?
Yeah.
Right? What container have you kept yourself in? What conditioning, do you kind of continue to just operate from? what is because Capricorn in many ways is crystallization.
Yeah.
Right? So it's what has become crystallized in your mind, in your heart, in your body, whatever.
What's become true for you.
Yeah. And then
that may not be true anymore.
Right. And that's the thing, and it doesn't mean we don't even have to say that it was wrong. It just simply is changing.
Yeah.
And when we have these symbols of universal change, that means the whole energetic vibe or frequency is changing.
Well, and can we redefine success? Because I often think of Capricorn as success, right? Yep. And Aquarius has a very different definition of success. Like, it's not this, like, I climbed the mountain, or I got the degree, or I finished or I got married, or I had children, or whatever. Like, Aquarian ideas of success are more fluid, and they're not necessarily tied to, like, social conventions.
No.
So maybe we can also redefine what success looks like, and it doesn't have to be this deferred dream. You know what I mean? It could be something that's more attainable and more realistic, and also something that is less defined by societal standards. And
there's a certain element of sometimes we do things in the Aquarian energy for the future that we will not experience in our lifetimes.
Oh, interesting.
Capricorn likes to see results now. Aquarius can see the ideal of the future, and sometimes it is worth giving up something of myself for what's going to come after. There's a future-mindedness.
Yeah, it's interesting because sometimes she and I will talk during these lives, and she'll say something that's like for me, I have to sit with for a second, because we don't, like, rehearse this. This isn't like a replay of a conversation we've already had. Well, and hopefully you like it. Like, this is how we're going to be teaching next year. Like, wow, I'm really sitting with that. Like, we talk about 7 generations in shamanism, right? Yes. Like, when I heal something in myself that's dysfunctional, the intention is that I'm healing 7 generations of people behind me, but I'm also healing 7 generations of people ahead of me, and I won't benefit from that. So I'm not doing it for myself. And I do think of Aquarian, now the shadow side of Aquarius is martyrdom, right? It's like, I'm going to completely sacrifice myself for everybody else's happiness. That's the shadow of Aquarius. The light side of Aquarius for me is everyone wins here, right? Like, I get to hold space for something new and see an edge of it, and then the next 7 generations also get this edge of it that I may not see. So there's the both and. I think that's the light side of it. And I experienced a lot of the shadow side of it growing up. Like, okay, you guys are going to benefit, but I'm going to, have to take the loss for it. And I think what we can work to is, what's the light side of change that you and I may not see in our lifetimes?
Yes. And can you find value and meaning in doing things or not doing things that will not be just for you?
Yeah.
And
is that why you're here?
But then let's talk about, and we don't know the answer to these mysteries, but how do you know you're not one of the next 7 generations coming?
Yeah.
And if we want to think about this even more, and I'm really delineating in a way that is probably not quite so finite, but
Lori said the same thing. You'll benefit in future lives.
Yeah, right? You will.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. I sometimes say when I'm having sessions with people, I'll say, if you do this work now, you're taking it with you. It's not just this lifetime. Like, it's worth digging in and doing it. But as you were talking, I was thinking, what if in some ways, if this shift from, because here's what's going to happen, right? When Pluto moves into Aquarius on March 23rd, 2023, it will be there until June 11th. And then because Pluto turns retrograde, it's going to dip back into Capricorn for a while. Yep. And then it will come back to Aquarius January 20th, 2024. And then it does a little dance, back and forth before it stays for the full 20 years.
32323 is different to me, though, too. I have to say, we have to play with the numbers over 2. Not tonight. We will in class. But
You're right. Yes. That's a good point. Yes. You always pick up that, and I don't. So I'm not.
Yeah.
But what if we think of this sort of transition this way? What if Capricorn were the 7 generations back, and what if Aquarius was the 7 generations forward? And what if we are literally sitting in the place, one of the most powerful places to, what would you call that place between them? To
emerge from, to manifest from. It is the point of, it's the 0 point.
0 point, and it's where the past and the future converge in the present.
Yeah, that's the 0 point.
And we are the present.
So if you believe in quantum physics, and we'll check in with you guys in a minute to see what questions you have. But if you believe in quantum physics, there is this idea of the 0 point, where all past and all future merge in this one present moment. And so many of my teachers, and I've shared this with those of you who are my students, have heard me say this like over and over and over again. So many of my teachers have said, you didn't come here in this go round to directly benefit. You came here to open a door and then sunset what wasn't working. Mm-hmm. And that's not an easy contract, but it is what you came here for. So if you can stop fighting it so much, like if you can stop expecting comfort and ease, and if you can start to sit with, okay, I came here to help. I'm here as an assistant, mm-hmm. right? And we talked about leadership at the beginning of this session, and I think it's a really interesting topic because there's a concept in leadership called servant leadership, where you're not here to lead and have other people serving you. You're actually here to lead and to serve other people. So in our Western society, if you serve people, like if you serve them food or if you serve them on an airplane or things like that, some people look at you as not as good as, right? Like you're there to serve me, right? And I'm somehow better, and so I'm receiving your service. In ancient cultures, if you were serving people, it was an honor, right? Like priestesses would feed you, but you didn't look at them as less than who you are. You revered them, and it was an honor to be served by them. We look at service very differently in our culture. Like if I serve you food, then I'm not as good as you are. In leadership, when we talk about servant leadership, it's an honor to be in service to you. So if you have a vision and I'm serving you in that vision and I'm trying to make that vision come to life, that is an absolute honor for me to do that. Does that resonate for you with what this shift is? It's like, I don't have to be in control to be powerful. In fact, my power can come from being with you and trying to do something with you that you believe in, and bringing that vision to life through you.
I was just going to say, it's less from me and more through me. Less from you, more through you.
Yeah, that's right.
That's much more of the Aquarian. Yeah. And again, back to the circulation, how does that power circulate between us? Because oftentimes one of the shadow sides of power, right, is that feeling that there won't be enough, right, and I have to amass more of it, right, or I have to wield it over you.
I have to have more than you do, because if I don't, then I'm not.
But that's not the real nature of power. That's not the core of what power really means. That's the way we distort it. That's the way we make it, I guess, manipulate it to our own agenda.
Or if we monetize it, then I have to have more money than you to have power. But again, I think even that's going to shift. Because how we think about money and commerce and resources is shifting even now. Like, do you have to have more than somebody, or if you're sharing resources, is that more powerful?
Aquarius is community. So again, the pull is that it will not be, and again, people are going to still do what they do.
They do,
right? So,
and it's a paradigm shift. It's a generational shift. To your point,
But if in the real Aquarian mindedness, it wouldn't be okay for me to have more if my neighbor doesn't have something. Like that would not be okay.
Yeah.
Right. And this idea that back to the ownership, because where Capricorn is very nation minded, right? So Pluto and Capricorn building up nations, and think about the U.S., right? Thinking that we're in some position of telling people, what they all should do and how they all should be, that sort of position. Aquarius is world-mindedness. It doesn't look at things broken into nations. Yeah. It looks at humanity or environment or life as a whole. And beyond that, it's linked with, all the planets and all the stars.
That's right.
So when we tap into this, we are not just limited by what's on Earth, not that we ever were, but we have even more of an expansion around how those little threads connect here.
I hope this means we're going to have aliens soon.
They're already here. Well, we just don't want to see them.
No, but I want them like here in the room.
Okay, but what this is?
Just aliens, just a lot of them, just all around.
Alexis is laughing at us. Here's the thing. I think with Pluto in Aquarius and with Saturn moving to Pisces, which is another thing we'll talk about later.
Yeah, not tonight, but another conversation. Yeah.
I think we will be more open to see what is really here and around us. But it's not that it hasn't been here.
No, they're here. disclosure. I want disclosure. I want full disclosure. I want aliens sitting in my lap during SGTV. That's what I want. It's like, oh, what do you think, Harold, or whatever?
I think we should invite them to every living astrology session consciously, and I will wear my Moldavite every time.
I will too,
and we will make it happen.
Yeah. No, I mean, I would absolutely love them to be just all over this building.
Here's the thing, Pluto. Truly, Pluto changes DNA, right? Like I was saying, it really is evolution, right? It really and Aquarius does not. There are no limits to what we think this 3D experience is.
That's right.
So the more we're open to that, the more the more those allies can actually work with us. Because at least to me, and again, I don't know the answer to all these things, but my feeling is.
They did like that I named them Harold. I don't know a Harold, so I try to go with names I don't know. You know what I mean? They're all Harolds.
Now we have to. Can you write down Harold, Alexis, so we remember in the future that
Harold Alien.
Harold is the alien.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll write it down.
I mean, maybe it came through. You don't know. It could be.
I'm channeling Harold.
Yeah. But here's the thing. I really do think that we just don't make ourselves available, right?
Yeah,
we create a container. Now, I do think that to some extent, I am in this body, so I'm not saying, some things are what they are, but there's a lot of room. There's different dimensions.
Yeah.
There's different frequencies. There's different everything.
That's right.
And we just like to choose the little view box. Hello, here's mine.
Yeah, they always say it's like you're seeing the whole world through this like little glass, right?
Have you ever tried just like to look behind yourself without turning your head? Like, this is a good way to play around with it, right? So we all look forward, right? But there's a whole expansion of vision behind you too. So these are the sorts of things, like sometimes when I'm driving, I play around with this. Like, I imagine, okay, I'm watching the cars, whatever, but what's behind me?
Yeah.
Right? What's all around me? And I think that there's just more room to invite that in.
Or who's having the awareness? Like,
is it?
Oh, I'm aware that I'm sad right now. Who's aware that I'm sad? Is that me, or is that a different awareness of my sadness? And sometimes, do you ever have this experience too? I might sound crazy, but I don't care anymore. I've gotten too old and I've been doing this too long. But some of you might actually have this experience too. I sometimes, especially in like liminal space, will feel something talking to me that is not me, that has to be higher self. You know what I mean? Like, it's okay, you did your best today, I love you, it's all right. It's almost parental, but it's a higher voice than my voice talking to me and it's often comforting, but it has also been judgmental at times. Like, you could have done better there. That could have gone differently. If you'd said this, it would have had a different outcome. So it isn't always this really like, oh, you're amazing and no matter what you do. I have learned to discern the voice of my higher self. And so I think that's also, the higher self is the part of you that's been through all the lifetimes, including the ones you haven't lived yet. And I think with our 3D language, we would call that an alien too. Yeah. Right? Truly. I mean, it could already be living through these other Pluto manifestations.
Yes, because at least for me, I think we are. I don't think if you come see me in a session, I will talk about past lives. So I'm not removing that from it. But I always tell people that I don't really think they're past.
That's what I tell people too.
And you and I've talked about this a lot. It's like radio stations. They're all playing.
Yeah.
Just because I turn into the country one doesn't mean that the rock and the jazz isn't playing.
But it's hard to wrap your head around because you tend to think of time as time, and if you really do believe what she and I are talking about, then your past lives are happening right now. Mm-hmm. And your future lifetimes are happening right now. And so what you experience as deja vu is really just you timeline jumping. Yes. You know what I mean? So what we're talking about right now with this whole shift with Pluto, if you're like, no, I'm good with this, like I've been expecting this is what I thought was going to happen, then you probably are already timeline jumping and you're not fully just in this dimension. If you're like, oh gosh, I mean, how do we go from top-down leadership to bottom-up leadership, and what would that look like, and what would that mean for our Constitution, and what will that mean for, I mean, the one thing I do feel like I always have to remind people is this planet didn't look like it looks like right now 1 million years ago. The continents were all in different positions. We've been through ice ages. Everything on this planet has also been through the opposite of that, like rainforest ages where everything was hot and humid. I've studied that with like Tucson, for example. Tucson's a caldera. There was a time when there were woolly mammoths, and it was under ice in Tucson. And then there was a time where Tucson was almost too hot to live in, and it was like a rainforest. And now it's like somewhere in between, right? So we think of Tucson as being like the desert and dry, but it wasn't always like that. Like Tucson was under ice. There are woolly mammoths, and they couldn't have lived in that kind of climate. We are silly to think that the planet's always going to look the way it looks the way to us today, and we're silly to think that the energies of who we are and what we experience are always going to be the same that it is today. At the same time, I think all of that is still available to us in this moment, because once you leave the third dimension, there's no time and there's no space. So you have to remove all your ideas about like God's up there, the devil's down there, and aliens are out there. Whatever. Like you have to remove all of that, and you have to remove also past life, future life. You have to remove all of that, and the human brain has a really hard time with this. And I sympathize, because I also sometimes struggle to think like, gosh, all these things are happening at once, and that's what deja vu is. It's just you being multidimensional for a minute. And that's super magic when you're like, God, I feel like I've been here before, and you absolutely have. In fact, you're there right now. But so if you're already in this, like Sarah says, the Mayan dream spell, right? And the Mayans always framed this, I've studied the Mayans and the Aztecs for decades, and the Mayans always frame this as a dream, right? Like everything's a dream. And the reality is this life is a dream. It's quick, it's in and out, you do what you can, you move forward, you keep the wisdom right, you transit through it. But there is this timelessness, and I think the radio bandwidth metaphor that Tara is sharing with you is really powerful, because it's sort of like, can I tune in to these other stations or these other channels to try to see what was it like when Pluto was in Aquarius before?
Yes.
What will it be like when Pluto is in Aquarius next? And then what are the gifts and challenges that we might face? And a lot of you who chimed in at the beginning that you're Aquarius, Sun, Moon, or Rising, you already know this, right? Like the gifts are, you're open-minded and you're willing to go first, and you're not afraid, right? Like you're open to things being different, and nothing's really weird to you if you're Aquarian. Yeah. But at the same time, you do kind of have an idea about how things should be. And when people rub up against that, you're like, whoa, you can be weird, but not that weird. That was too weird for me, or whatever. And so there's a threshold with Aquarius that I think we have to kind of feel into. And then Pluto doesn't like thresholds, right? Because Pluto is the threshold. So Pluto's going to test a lot of those boundaries, at least, from my perspective of like, what does it mean? Is there a bottom?
Well, which is interesting, because oftentimes we say Pluto's the bottom line. So the question is, where is it? What is it? Is it? Does it even exist? Yeah. Pluto, by nature, asks us to confront things. So one thing you can think about, collectively we can see already right now, with being at the end of Capricorn, getting close to Aquarius, we can already see how all this unearthing, of people's reprehensible behavior and things, like, right, you can see it like it's like Pluto, right? It digs in, dig deep, and then it pulls it out, and it exposes the truth of what it is. Yeah. So one of the things in your own life you can be mindful of, and someone just reminded me of this morning, that if you want to grow, a couple things need to happen. Probably a whole big list, but one, you've got to be willing to confront where you keep doing those old things, those old habits, those old judgments, those old routines. And you also need to be open to hear some of the difficult things. And so when people in your life, and this is not easy, I personally don't think this is easy. When my partner says to me, you do realize the way you're talking, you're being a victim here, or you do realize that, you're making it all about yourself. I have a couple choices. I can react to that, right? Yep. And make it all about him, saying something nasty to me.
That's a projection, and,
And I might not like the way he says it, which is a Sagittarius, so oftentimes I don't like the way he says it to me. But
I find it hot.
But if
I do, because I like all the pushback. I'm like, give it to me. Yeah. Tell me where I'm fucking up.
But my Cancer self is trying. I do have Aries rising, so I have it in me. But but my Cancer self, like part of my growth and part of all of us is, can we actually see that? Wow, I don't know, that old behavior. Maybe you don't know. You don't have to have an answer, but at least stop. Be willing to look at your own stuff. Yeah. Be willing to own what it is, because Pluto empowerment doesn't come from avoiding or getting away from your obsessions and your addictions and all the things you do that are weird, contorted. We all have this stuff, right? I'm not talking, I mean, the empowerment comes from getting real. Oh, like this morning, I had this moment with myself of, whoa, you know, I'm telling myself I'm not doing it well enough again, right? And so instead of trying to be, oh, I'm just going to jump out of that mindset, I just sat there for a second, I'm telling myself I'm not good enough again. Here I am in this place. Yeah. Can I be real and honest here and still do what I need to do? That's Pluto stuff. Pluto it's deep psychology. It's the deepest buried stuff.
Yep.
So if you want to make the most of it, and if you really want to make quantum leaps in your own consciousness and all these different things, and for all of us, that's part of what this takes.
Yeah.
And it is not easy. No. Like, it takes real courage to be real. And to be able to sit with someone in that space when sometimes it's very uncomfortable. Pluto literally rules shit. So you've got to be willing to be called out on your shit if you want to go through. I mean, let me just say this. Even if you don't, you're going to go through a transformation anyway.
It's true.
But if you want to consciously get on board and you want more from it, and you want to be more alive and you want to feel more empowered and you want to have more freedom to live in a way that's authentic to you, which is also very Aquarian, then you don't just get to skip along and, you know, there's a certain reckoning with Pluto. And you said in the very beginning something about with Pluto, you know, you can't resist it or it's just happening. There's an astrologer, Daniel Giamario, and years ago, and I was in some workshop, he said it's conditions for surrender. Because with Pluto, something is going to change. You have a choice of how you respond, whether you can go with the flow. Sometimes you have to stand up for things, but it is not negotiable in the way that other things are. You're gonna, you know, like someday we're gonna die, and it rules, and there's death is associated with it too.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Pluto's the underworld, right? It's like where do you go when this ship sails, you know? And I think there's some real power in looking at that too. And I also think too, like, for me, there's an energy too here of my therapist, who's also an energy worker, talks about the energy of Pluto as collecting impingements.
Impingements.
Yeah, like just the little things that are wrong. You know what I mean? Like, and that, and this, and kind of looking at all the places where you're flawed. You know what I mean? And it's hard for a lot of signs to take it. You know what I mean? Like, okay, so I could do this better, and I could do that better, and I could do this better, and I could do that better. And it's not your whole life that is put under this microscope. But if you've been feeling in the last, you know, I don't know, couple of years, right? Especially as we've been going through a planetary on the collective unconscious front of, like, where are we all falling down, right? Where have we all kind of failed, or where could we all improve? Because again, there's a collective, and remember with everything, right, in astrology, there's a shadow period, right? It's like the thing happens, but it's been kind of coming for a little while. And so you can look at, like, I think we're kind of in the shadow of this right now, which is why we're trying to talk about it. Like, so what does this mean for us, and what do we need to look at now in order to prepare for, like, what this means for us in the spring? But I think there's this idea that, like, looking at your flaws, honestly, is a way of strengthening you.
Oh. It is power.
It is power. Because then it's not somebody else saying, this is what you don't do well. It's you saying, this is where I can improve and become stronger and become better. A higher, cleaner, brighter version of who I am. And if I can bring that forward, then what's possible? You know, and it's like all the barriers and the boundaries kind of disappear.
Yeah. And Pluto is
and isn't that why we're here too?
Oh yeah.
To get better.
Yeah. This idea someone was asking about, if you're doing shadow work, does that kind of give you a leg up? Well, anytime you're getting in and owning your own stuff, it's always, and Pluto has so much is associated with the shadow. So if you're already doing that, I mean, you're basically consciously getting yourself in alignment with the change. But I was thinking too, with this idea of there being what we're calling a shadow period, when something's going to change, and this is true when you're trying to change your own behaviors or habits or patterns too. oftentimes there is a great period of holding on to the thing that came before when we feel that something's going to shift.
Yeah.
So while Pluto's at the late degrees of Capricorn, there's like almost a double down to stay in the Capricorn zone.
Interesting.
Right? And I think that's in part because subconsciously, and then those of us, that are conscious about it, we know what the shift is coming. And so there's this need to be like, okay, well then I gotta like really hold on, or maybe I don't want to go, or I got it. And that itself,
please.
And that creates this huge amount of resistance.
Yeah.
Right? And
what happens to what you resist?
It persists. We all know, right? That's right. Yeah.
It's really true, though. It's like, please don't. It's like, but it's already happening. Yeah.
And Pluto, back to what you were saying before about our flaws, it is specifically associated with our sense of lack. Mm-hmm. So wherever it is, like in your birth chart, for example, in part shows the area that you kind of always feel like you don't quite have enough.
Yeah.
Because it's where you've been trying to power up.
Yeah.
Right? So that sense of whether we call it a flaw or a sense of lack, just being honest about where we don't feel full, where do you not feel in your power, right? Those are good places to start. One of the things I try to practice is even when they're flaws, I try just to not label them.
Yeah.
Like I would just say, oh, I have a habit of saying this to myself, right? And so instead of putting it in a category, I feel like it gives a little more space, one, for me to try to understand what I'm actually doing when I do that thing. Yeah. Sometimes when we automatically say, even using the word shadow sometimes, this is my deep shadow stuff, even that will sometimes shove it into a place. So sometimes if you can just be a little bit, whoa, I really manipulate my friends a lot, And if you can just hang out with that for a little bit, before you give it a designation of good or bad or right or wrong.
Right.
Another thing about Aquarius, Pluto and Aquarius, is part of the transformation is bringing more objectivity, right? Bringing more space. It's an air sign, breathing room around things.
That's really important to hear that too, because moving from earth to air is significant, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You need space. And you need to be able to breathe. And you need to be able to get clear.
It's not grounded.
You were talking about set and setting coming up in January, right? So, and this is like actually a perfect time for set and setting, especially in the air sign.
Yeah.
Because what do I need to clear, even if I don't know what's going in the space? What do I need to clear so there's room for me to kind of adjust my view and have a different, all the air signs to some extent, are about the mind and perspective, right? Mm-hmm. How I'm looking at things.
And they think about things so differently.
Yeah.
Like Aquarius to Gemini to
Libra.
I mean, you put three of them in a room, they don't think the same way, but they're all air signs. It's like how
But they're all thinkers.
They're all thinkers, but like where they take the thought is so different. Yeah.
And Aquarius is the, being that it's the furthest along in the zodiac wheel, it is the furthest out there.
Yeah.
It has the most ability to tune into the things that are most unusual or
it does. Well, it's I mean, and it's funny because the only two people in my family who were ever visited directly by extraterrestrial beings were my mother and my grandmother, who are both double Aquarius.
Well, it's probably their people.
No, it's their people. But I mean, as I've told many of you over the years, like, they both came into the house after that full contact in the 90s, and my mom wanted to do nothing but talk about it, and my grandmother literally said, "Don't ever ask me about it again." And that's for Aquarian, though. You know what I mean? Like, one of them, my grandmother was a minister, and she was like, "This does not reconcile with my religious beliefs, and please don't ever ask me to talk about that again." And my mom was like, "Party on, Wayne, party on, Garth. I want to talk about this forever." You know what I mean? Like, this is the coolest thing that ever happened. And here's two Aquarians who take it in these radically different directions. But I mean, thinking about it that way, it's like it is the sign that has the most capacity to handle a truth that is outside the boundaries of what we think of as true. And so, I, without getting, and we'll turn to questions now in just a second, but because I am curious what's on your mind. But I will say, like, the last couple of decades, right, in the United States, we've seen that there's a potential for a real paradigm shift in how our government can function. And it freaks people the fuck out. I mean, especially if they don't come from other countries or they haven't lived in other parts of the world, if they haven't traveled or I don't know, like you just get used to a very specific type and way of doing things, and then it's scary to think about doing things in a different way. But I do think that we're going to have to let go of what feels comfortable in these next weeks, months, and years, and be open to a different way of doing things. And then the freedom becomes, you can also go where you need to go to have what you need to have. Yes. You don't have to stay where you are. You're not a tree, right? So.
No, and I think of oftentimes when I play with the signs and the elements they're in and the modalities they're in, fixed air, I think of it as the eye of the hurricane. Yeah. So I think of that way when we're coming into that place of transformation, metamorphosis, change, letting go with Pluto and Aquarius. But can you find the eye in the hurricane, right? So like all this stuff can be going on, but you don't have to be, I don't know, floating, thrown around.
Yeah, you don't. Yeah.
You can be, you could actually be held, I don't even want to call it space. You can be held in just what is. Yeah. And that in itself has a grounding. It's just different than what we're used to of, oh, here's this table, right? Or here's this tree.
Yeah, and finding that, like, you know, in my energy work, we talk about resting in alignment with love, right? That if, when all else fails, love is the river that you can float in, and it won't fail you. You won't sink. You won't drown. But we're used to, first chakra stuff is about like, yeah, but what about my family? Yeah, but what about my country? Yeah, but what about my house? But what about my possessions? Like that's very first chakra. Like if you tell a 1-year-old like rest in alignment with love, the 1-year-old's going to be like,
where's my blanket?
What's happening to my blanket? But where's my pacifier, right? Like they're gonna be like, I love love, it's so great, but where the fuck's my pacifier? Yeah. So you have to remember, like, we're still human and we still have to be in this like kind of first chakra space where our little people inside still don't fully understand that we can go through these transformations and still be safe. It's true. And so maybe this is first chakra work in a way, is like going back and like reminding ourselves that we're safe, we're held, there is a higher power and a frequency. We came from that force, so we know that force intimately. We may have forgotten a lot about it, but we came from it. And resting back into that, you know, is our place of power.
And if we play around with Pluto and we think about it being even down to Earth star,
I like that
chakra, and then if we don't think about ascending through, you know, root, sacral. Well, think about the other way. What if you can go from Earth star directly back up to Soul star, right? So part of me feels...
Or what if there's something deeper than Earth star? Like what if...
Exactly.
Yeah.
But if I'm in my mind thinking kind of Aquarius in some ways kind of does have a little bit of that Soul star energy, and then Pluto has that Earth star. Yeah. But if we bend the...
If we bend it, like the tube Taurus, right?
And, isn't that perfect for what we're talking? And isn't
that what we already are, right? Like, isn't that toroidal flow kind of bending between...
It's not two ends.
It's not vertical. Have we lost you guys?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm tracking her, but I'm just saying, like, I think it's really interesting if you think about it as not being a vertical line through your chakras, but actually being a loop, like a feedback loop or a feedback cycle, that you don't have to go from Earth star to Soul star, that it can actually be more of a flow of energy.
Yep.
That flow centers, if you remember, your central chakra is always your heart.
Yes.
So if that's where everything meets, is right here in the center, right? If everything comes back to the heart chakra, then it's really about the I feel, right? I love, and what comes back to, and maybe that's where that river of love or that unconditional love can be a place that we can rest. Because it's the one thing that's really true, I think, across this lifetime. Like, I think we carry the wisdom that we gather, but I think we carry the love that we gather too when we leave here. We don't get to take a physical things with us, but I do think we take the wisdom and the love.
Nope, I agree.
So, yeah. So, how are you guys doing? How are you doing? So, yeah, it's a spiral. I love it.
Someone said it's like cerebral spinal fluid.
Yes. It is like that. And if you think about it, like, your spinal column is your sushumna. It's where all the chakras sit, and so of course it's the spinal fluid. Of course it's it's the juice that connects the energy centers, right? It's all you're floating in all of that. And I always like to teach you too, like one of my favorite energy work teachers always reminds me, when we're stressed as humans, we go like this, we lean forward, which closes all the chakras.
Yep.
And when we're relaxed, we tend to be like this, which opens all the chakras. And so she's always like, are you leaning forward or are you leaning back when I'm talking to her, if I'm not like on Zoom or FaceTime? And it's usually if I'm stressed, I'm like this, kind of hunched over, and if I'm relaxed, I'm like this. Everything's open, everything's flowing. So it's just a reminder too, like Capricorn is this.
It contracts oftentimes.
It contracts.
You're right.
And Aquarius opens, like what is will be, My mom was famous for saying, and I hate the saying, I'm not judging any of you who say it, but like, I don't believe it is what it is. But my mom was like the queen of it is what it is, right? And I used to go, no, it is what you will make it. It is what it will be. But it's very Aquarian to go, it is what it is, whatever, because they're going with the flow of it. And when she would say it, she wasn't stressed. She was just like, well, it is what it is. Que sera, sera. And it's like, how do you seem so relaxed when you say that?
Because I think that's that objective, that's that ability to sort of step outside and watch it. It's one of the gifts. It can also be a shadow side, because Aquarius sometimes can lose touch with the heart center. Like sometimes they can be a little too...
detached.
Yeah, detached. But on the positive side, they don't have to sit and be emotionally reactive to everything. They can be like, oh... Look at
kind
that.
of grounded in a way.
And that's why there's such a space for figuring things out and understanding, because
is it because they're on the heels of Capricorn? Is that why they have a little bit of that edge of grounding? Is that
they're both Capricorn and Aquarius are ruled by Saturn traditionally.
Yeah.
So they both have their own Saturnian influence. They just manifest in different ways. So, and that's a whole other conversation, which is actually very, very interesting, because with Aquarius, we talk about it in modern astrology being ruled by Uranus.
Yeah.
But traditionally it's Saturn, and I always work with both rulers, which means Aquarius has an equal, desire to fit in, like to have the group. That's also that side too. So, both.
Fascinating.
And where we are. Someone asked a question about where Pluto is in your chart, how this relates. So I'll just very briefly say that what this transit we're talking about is actually happening in the sky. So Pluto is moving from Capricorn to Aquarius. So if you want to see where that's going to activate, you have to look in your personal birth chart and see where Aquarius is in your chart. It's like, so for me, that starts up, I think, in my 10th house and moves into my 11th house. And that gives you more information about where it will activate your chart. There is a wealth of information to look into where your own Pluto placement is, but that's a whole separate topic.
Or if you were in class, it was last month, too. So if you're in our online programs, you have your Pluto placement.
Yeah. It's always about where you need to transform. It's always about where you need to grow and evolve, and it's always so that some of the themes we're talking about applies to the personal chart and to the collective stuff.
And we're going to talk about that in Living Astrology. So this is, tonight's been kind of like a fun and free preview of the I don't know. I consider this fun. Like, this is intellectual, kind of like neuroplasticity, where we like take your brain and kind of like, here's your brain on astrology or whatever, but we kind of like pull you in different directions. So a reminder that if you're interested in this and you love this, and this is like right up your alley, sagegoddess.com/livingmagic, and you can choose to sign up for the whole program or just for Living Astrology, which is the first session of each month. And just be with me and Tara for the first 2 hours of each month to give you kind of a heads up of like, here's what's happening with the planets, here's what these transits mean, here's how you can prepare, here's how they're relevant to you based on your own personal chart, because we're going to look at the inflections in your own chart and kind of mirror that back to you. But this is a little abbreviated taste, because classes are 2 hours long and there's time for Q&A, but this is kind of what you can expect. A little.
But you get a good feel for how we are our flow, and partly we both really love doing it. So it's a pleasure to share it with you and with all of you. Meaning, like, I would want to do it anyway, even if so that's what's extra bonus.
Yeah, no, it is. Like, this is what she and I spend, like, our free time doing, and, like, we geek out on this stuff, and, like, even if I see her during the day, we end up having these conversations, so this is not like, prepared for you this evening. We have a lecture on. No, it was like, okay, so how do you think? Well, what do you think? And how does that unfold? But, yeah, and so it depends on, like she said, where Aquarius is in your chart, where Pluto is in your chart. You're going to want to look at both of those things. And then she and I are going to teach you kind of right out the gate in January how to read your natal chart, because it's important for you to know where these planets and these houses are and kind of how to interpret that. And that's going to be part of session 1 in January. So yeah, and then you end up going down rabbit holes with us, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, tonight was definitely a rabbit hole, but we did what my main intention and her main intention was. If you go on YouTube and you're into astrology, you're going to see people talking about, like I said, making it into a thirst trap of like, oh, this huge paradigm shift in 2023, and it is a paradigm shift, but it's not going to change everything about our planet, but it is going to change a little bit about our orientation to. Because Capricorn and Aquarius are just so different. And it's not just the elemental difference between earth and air, but it's also the orientation to power. And that's why I think it's really important that we started this conversation with top down versus bottom up. Yeah. And a lot of people are more comfortable with top down leadership. You know, I'm more comfortable with bottom up. I'd rather have collective buy-in. I'd rather have people say yes. We all agree that's the best way to do it, as opposed to me saying this is what we're going to do and you're going to do it. Like, I've never been that kind of a leader. And honestly, if you look at the thousands of years of different kinds of structures and leadership, that doesn't work that well in the long term anyway. Because when people buy into something, then you have them on your side. And they're part of the process. And so that's a more cohesive way to lead, as opposed to just telling people what to do and expecting them to abide by the rules. Yeah. But now we don't have a choice. Now it's like, okay, well, whether you like it or not, it's going to be more bottom up than top down. And so what does that look like? And it's shared, it's mutual, and the results, the rewards are sacred, because they are not just won by one person, they're won by the collective.
The one note I wrote down, I mean, I had a bunch, but one in particular is that one thing that can help us all prepare and move through this is consider how the we is more important than any me. There will be times in your life where you need to put yourself first. So I'm not saying not to do that, but in general, the more we can think about, am I just getting stuck in this because I think it should be this way? Am I just following someone or listening to someone just because they've always done
it this way?
All those types of things up for question, because it actually is not as easy, at least for me. What does it mean to actually really consider the whole we? Yeah. I mean, most of us go through our day. We don't even realize how many times it's all about, well, I need to get my latte in time, and I'm in my line, thinking about that piece or whatever it is here. And so I think that part of the challenge is, how can we start to look at what is better for all of us? And you can start small, right? If you go to a job and you have a team, you can think about that. How can you start thinking about what the whole team needs versus just the tasks on your list? Yeah. I get stuck in that space all the time.
And macroing out too, like, I've had conversations with my kids in the last couple of years where they're like, because kids are exposed to more now on TikTok and things, where my kids will say, gosh, I have clean water, like our water's filtered in our house, but there's a lot of people who don't have clean water to drink, and like, that's not okay. No. And it's like, no, it's not okay. So what can we do, and sharing it. And I just think that's really powerful. Like, as a child, I don't remember having those conversations with my parents, but it's really cool when my kids come to me and go, I don't think it's okay that some people don't have clean water to drink. And like, I can just turn on my tap and like, I can drink that. Like, I don't think that's okay. And so I think that's part of this Aquarian age. And if you think about what that could mean for leadership in 20, 30 years from now, where it's like, no, if there's a single person on this planet who doesn't have clean water to drink, game over. Like, what are we doing? And what are we doing throwing water away and throwing our bottles of water away or pouring them out? Like, it's not okay to do those things. And that's a micro example of a macro representation.
And it's everybody's problem.
It's everybody's problem. Right? It's not just one person's.
It's not my boss's problem. He owns the company. It's the president's problem.
Clean water or whatever.
Exactly.
Like, no, it's not. Yeah. So I think there's this. I do think there's this shift happening, and because I have teenagers who are asking these big questions, it gives me a lot of hope. And it's hard sometimes, because I'll say to them, like, you know what? It's a great question, and let's start to think about what we can do locally. Let's start to think about what we can do regionally, right? Like, and even showing them a map. Like, where do we begin today? What's the first step toward these things versus saying like, well, I don't know. But I do think this is, if all of this is exciting to you, I think the next 20 years is going to show what we can do as a collective. And I'm going to say this too, and I'm not a political person at all. I do think that we have some global issues ahead of us with water levels rising and different things that are happening that are not Athena's opinion, that are actually scientific. And I think we need global solutions to them and not individual regional solutions to them. So I think this is happening, honestly, to save our planet. And because I want my grandchildren to be able to go to a beach in Africa and be able to play if they want to, and not have, or go to New York City and not have it be underwater. Like, I like the idea that my grandchildren will still have a planet to explore. And isn't the timing right? You know, for all of us to go, this isn't just your problem, this is my problem, this is our problem. And we're going to solve this together. And it's not about whether someone's right or wrong or what their agenda is. It's about how do we collectively support each other. And again, I think we're seeing that. I think when I started Sage Goddess 20 years or 11 years ago, 20 years ago in thought, but 11 years ago indeed, going online and having these conversations was very foreign. People weren't doing that. We were all very siloed. People were writing articles and things, but if you weren't tapped into like a green movement or whatever, you weren't reading any of that. Now you got people on YouTube and TikTok who are sharing like very personal, and kids sharing their opinions and experiences, and that's a collective awareness that makes us all one family. It makes us all mutually accountable for each other, and I think that's going to create a different reality for the next generations. And again, if we care about siete generaciones, the 7 generations ahead of us, and not just where we are today, to your point, which when you said it landed different for me. It really did, when you were like, it may not matter if we see the outcome of this. That may not be why we're here. That's huge, right? Like, it isn't about you and it isn't about me. It's about what we're leaving behind, and it doesn't matter whether you have children or not. It's about the fact that we are a global family and we have work to do for the collective. That means we can make a difference, and you don't have to pay anything to make a difference, right? It could just be a video you share, or a page that you like, or a different choice that you make with recyclables. Turn off
the lights when you don't need them.
The lights, or you know what I mean. Like,
I just like to bathe less frequently because I don't really like to do it.
I don't like
so that's how I conserve them.
I don't consider that a service though, because that's just selfish. Like, I don't want to bathe myself. But
well, we have that in common.
I know, but you know what I mean. Like, the things that you consciously do to make a difference, like. There's something really beautiful about that. That it doesn't matter if it benefits you or not. Because it may benefit you because you're going to come back here in some other form and incarnation, but beyond the selfishness, that's Aquarius. Yes. And that's where Pluto's going. I know. Yeah, leave this place better than you found it. Leave somebody better than you found them.
Yeah.
You know, every single day, somebody's life should be better because you were here. And if you look at today and go, well, nobody's life was better today because I was here, first of all, you're probably not really looking at what you've done, because it's probably hard to take credit for it. But make a difference. You know what I mean? Like, and it's such small things. Like, I remember my daughter's a Pisces, and I always think Pisces are like the visionaries. But like, we would go to like McDonald's when she was a kid. And she would have pennies in her little purse, and she would leave a penny on every table.
That's so cute.
And I would say, but there's nobody there. And she would say, no, but there will be somebody there, and they're going to have that penny. Like, it's just, look at the innocence and the beauty, because that's Aquarius too, right? Like, what can we do that might seem so silly and so insignificant, but really make a difference for somebody behind us, right? Paying the meter ahead, even though you're not going to be parking there.
Yeah, but this is the ultimate pay it forward. Remember that movie?
It's the ultimate pay it forward. This is a cosmic pay it forward.
Yeah.
And are you about that? And if you are, I think you're going to really enjoy the next 2 decades of your life. And if you're not, well, you better just get the fuck on board. because this is what's happening. Here's my Leo double fire coming in. Sorry.
It's like get dragged behind the cart or run along.
Yeah, let go and be dragged. So this is, like I said, this is what you can expect from session 1 of Living Magic in 2023. Living Magic is my brand new online program. This amazing woman next to me will be co-teaching that class with me and leading it, but I'll be here as her sidekick and her poke and prod.
We're in it together.
We chit chat. We're good for each other. We are. So that'll be session 1, and then session 2 each month is going to be a session called Practicing Magic, where I take you into my garden or into my kitchen or into my bathroom or bedroom or whatever to teach you about how I bring magic into my life on a day-to-day basis. And then session 3 is going to be Crystalpedia. That's the title of my brand new book, which is an encyclopedia resource guide for gemstones. And we're going to teach you both breadth and depth around crystal healing and different themes every month. And then session 4 is sound healing. And we're certifying you in all these things. You're going to be certified as a living astrology practitioner, which is what we're teaching tonight. We're going to be certifying you as a sound healer, certifying you as a crystal pediatrician, with your breadth and depth of crystal wisdom, and then certifying you as a graduate of the whole program. So sagegoddess.com/livingmagic. We would love to have you join us.
And the speaker series.
Deepak Chopra, who there's a picture of him and me right behind me. Deepak Chopra and I share an editor and a publisher, and so his new book called Living in the Light is coming out in January, and he's coming to talk about the book and answer all of your questions on January 20th. That's a free perk of joining Living Magic. So all of that is happening in January. We would love to have you there. And so you have until the end of the month to register for programs, but we would love to have you. So sagegoddess.com/livingmagic. And if you just want the astrology piece, we broke that out separately specifically for you. And if you sign up for 1 month of astrology, it's $40 a month. If you sign up for the whole year, you save 2 months off the whole year. So it's $400 for the year, which is really cool. Living Magic is the same thing. So it's $100 a month for all 4 classes, plus the bonus speaker series and elder council and all the other extra bonuses that we're doing. There's a bonus, for example, in February called the Tarot of Love with the most incredible tarot teacher. Yeah. So there's a masterclass on Tarot of Love in February that's part of your membership in Living Magic. That is $100 a month, or you can sign up for the whole year, and it's $1,000 for the year, so you save $200. But that goes away at the end of December. So if you want to save, you have to sign up for the whole year, but you do get 2 months free of whatever you choose, and that's at sagegoddess.com/livingmagic. So glad you guys were here. So please share this video with people you know and love who might want to know more about what's coming in March. Again, you're starting to feel the effects of it now, as with everything in astrology. You know, it's coming in March, but you start to feel it in January. It's like Mercury is about to go retrograde. You're feeling it already. We're in the shadow already. Shit's going sideways already, everybody. But astrology is a living study of planets in motion. And it's a living study also because of you, right? Like, you are a living body in motion. And so it's dynamic and it's exciting and it's fluid, and but we're so lucky to have one of the best in the world right with us. So stay tuned to Living Magic. Make sure you register. There are tools for the classes. You can find out more about those too. Those are optional also at sagegoddess.com/livingmagic. The tool prices are $44 for the Crystalpedia tools, and then they are $111, I think, for the Living Magic tools. And yeah, which are very cool. Do you want to see them? We can show them to you. Oh, yeah. I'd love to show you the tools.
Oh, Lord. I have to do it?
You want to show them? Alexis,
can you come do the tools?
Oh, sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Alexis is going to
I would happily do it, but I guarantee you'll get a better view.
Yeah, Alexis will show you, because she's good with the camera and moving things all around. So each month in the Living Magic tools, you know Alexis.
Okay, so, it's kind of set up. No, you're fine. It's just everything got set up directly in front of the camera, so it's kind of weird.
It's okay. Okay, so if you sign up for the Living Magic tools, you're going to get the sound tool for January, because every month there's a sound healing class. And we're going to be talking about bells and chimes, which are very sacred in sound healing. It's a great place to begin. So we had a custom brass bell made for you with a double Dorji on top.
It's big. Like if you put your hand to it, like it's beautiful. And I have a big hand, so
she's showing you what.
I have a big hand too.
Big hand.
I have a little fairy hand, so it'll look real small in my hand. And then you get your Living Magic Mist, which we're calling Living Essence, which is beautiful. And that also comes with it. And then your Living Magic Incense and your labradorite turntable.
Quite possibly the star of the show.
It's a Lazy Susan in labradorite that we had custom made.
Look at that quality of labradorite.
Yeah.
Good catch of it.
That's the shot.
And then if she holds it from the bottom, she'll show you like how it turns. It literally spins around, so you can make your tools spin on your altar.
And you just set your little things on there,
and everything goes on there.
You have to make the noise. It doesn't make a noise. You have to make it.
You have to make the noise.
It's not a squeaky Lazy Susan.
And then you get your 2 cards. You get your astrology card and your living magic card, and you get a little ring-a-ding to put them all together so you don't lose them.
And an intuitive color.
Intuitive ring-a-ding color.
Intuitive. The colors are so
Very
pretty.
technical term for the ring-a-dings.
Yeah.
And then if you just get your Crystalpedia tools,
you get this too.
Your beautiful and your candle, Living Winter. And then the Crystalpedia tools, you get your black kyanite ring for clearing, and you get the custom jewelry box, and you get a little booklet called. Which the book was amazing. Look at that. That's sterling silver, fully adjustable. And it's called The Little Book of Gems. And it's got little snippets from my brand new book called Crystalpedia, which we're really excited about. And also other things like crystals for the chakras and crystals by intention and crystals for the months and little spaces to journal and all these things. So that's your free gift for the month.
It's very, very cute.
And we're glad you're excited about it. So all of this is at sagegoddess.com/what? Living magic. Thank you guys for being here so much. We really appreciate you. We hope you enjoyed this session because we loved being here with you live. And stay tuned. More to come. Make sure you register. Our first session is the first week of January, and we will be kicking it right off. There's a lot. There's 5 super new moons happening back to back, and a lot of really exciting, and of course this Pluto transit, so there's a lot to talk about that we're going to kick the year off with a bang, so you will not be disappointed, and we're looking forward to seeing you in January. So yeah, you have to sign up for classes before the end of December. And what's today, the 16th? 15th?
Yes, 16th.
16th. Yeah, so you have to sign up. The tools may sell out, so I do recommend registering for your tools sooner than later. We may sell out of the labradorite Lazy Susans. We may sell out of the rings. We don't have an endless supply of them. We just don't know how many people are going to register. So there's still room right now. Sign up for the classes. And the number one thing for you to know, when you sign up for classes, you don't pay right now. You don't get charged until January 1st. Whatever you sign up for, whether it's Living Magic, the whole program, or just Crystalpedia, or just Living Astrology, you're just reserving your space. You don't get charged a thing for classes until January. The tools you're going to pay for now because we've got to ship them to you, right? So that's going to happen. But the classes don't begin till January, and you don't pay till January. So when you sign up tonight at sagegoddess.com/livingmagic, you're just reserving your spot. What do you do with the Lazy Susan? That's the centerpiece for your entire altar. And that way, when you're in ritual and you're like, oh, I need my perfume, you just turn the thing. Or, oh, I need my candle, you just turn the thing. Or, oh, I just need my, my stones, you just turn the wheel. Have you ever had a Lazy Susan at home? I have them on my kitchen table, and it's like, oh, I need a napkin. We'll turn the Lazy Susan. It's kind of the same thing for your altar. But nobody's ever made a gemstone Lazy Susan before, so we're really
usually
excited about it.
It's in my kitchen cabinets. Like one of them I open it, and it swirls around.
Yeah, this is for your altar, right? If you're in Soul Shift, your tools do not transfer. Only your membership transfers. So you have to sign up for tools again if you want tools. If you're in Soul Shift and you just want to stay a member but you don't want tools, then your membership automatically transfers. But if you want tools, you have to sign up again. Yes, and so that's right, Ray. So the February tools will come out in early January. They're amazing. We're knocking your socks off, Ray, the whole year long, and you'll have until the 15th of January to sign up for those tools. Yeah. So stay tuned. I know. Can we make more different stones? I don't know. We'll try. I know. This was our first go. So, but I'm obsessed with mine, I will tell you. I think it's the coolest thing we've ever done. So stay tuned. All right, you guys. Mwah, we love you. Thank you for being here tonight. And we'll see you soon. Have a good rest of your evening. SageGuys.com/livingmagic. SageGuys.com/livingmagic. We'll see you soon.